So, hello people, and welcome at the video about the archetype challenge. The first archetype that I focused on, which was yesterday, was the king. And in this video, you will find out about what the king is. I will tell a little bit more about the archetypes in general, and you will also have some insight into how you can apply this theory into your own life and to realize this king energy within yourself. So yeah, let's start off with the archetypes, because the archetypes is a theory that is developed to understand the male psyche, and it's a book written by Robert Moore and Douglas Gillette, and this is the book. It's quite difficult to read it at first because it's mainly described through stories, and you have to understand that these archetypes are just representations of something that we naturally are drawn towards. So in this book of the archetypes, there are 4 main archetypes that are being described. That's the king, the warrior, the magician, and the lover. Like I said, today I will focus on the king. And I've written it down for all of you guys so that I don't miss anything important, because if you misunderstand the archetypes and start applying it in the wrong way, then it can actually have an adverse effect of what you want to achieve. So the king energy. The king energy with the archetypes is the most important one. And yeah, it's the king archetype has the same relationship to the child version of this, which is the precious child. I will not go into that right now, but I will make a course on this where this is more clearly explained. For the purpose of this video, that is not necessarily to go into, but it has the same relationship to the child version of the archetypes with the divine child as the king has with the other archetypes, with the king, the warrior, the magician, and the lover, of course. This archetype underlies and includes all other archetypes. So the king is the center of all the archetypes, and he kind of rules over his kingdom and over the other archetypes in relation to the warrior, for example, when shit needs to get done, in relation to the lover when you want to develop that connection with life, right? Because the king is also life-giving and regenerative in the full embodiment of the king, as opposed to the precious child. The king energy is extremely selfless, so the actions that he takes are in the betterment of the kingdom and the realm that he is the king of. You can see this in your own life as being the ruler of your own life, right? So you really want to develop this king energy, and it's also related to the father energy. For example, in your family, when you have a wife and kids, this king energy is the one that makes sure that everything goes smoothly, that everyone is protected and safe, and you also help your children develop in a healthy way. So it's really essential if we want to create a better world for the next generations that we all develop this within ourselves as men, because there are also two shadow sides of the king energy, which I will go into in a moment. And if you get into this, it can be extremely destructive, and you don't want that to happen. So this image of the king, it comes close to the image of God, and he brings the divine and the mortal world together. So he is actually kind of the spokesperson of the good that God represents, right? So also the Jews and the Christians call this the Imago Dei, and this translates to the image of God. Like I said before, the king energy is also the father, but it's a little bit more all-encompassing than only being the father, because the father is in charge of taking care of his family, right? Where the king is in charge of taking care of his entire kingdom. You can really clearly see this in the movie of The Lion King, right? There, the Lion King is raising Simba to be the next king after him. And although he is the father to Simba, he's also the father of the entire realm. So it's a really big burden to be a king, and it takes a lot of responsibility to be a good king. And yeah, as the king, you should embody the utmost care for all the people within your world. So yeah, like I said, the king is burdened by responsibility, and you can imagine this as the sword hanging above his head. There is this story which I will go into briefly, and that is about a servant that goes into the king's chamber, and he walks up to the king, and he's been a really good servant to the king, and he wants to know how it feels to be the king. He wants to sit in that throne, right? And someday the king says, okay, you can be the king for a moment. And he lets this servant sit in his throne. And this servant, he is really excited and elated, right? To sit there in this chair, really feeling like the king, watching over the entire king's chamber, where he's sitting on top of a little plateau, a little bit elevated above the ground floor, right? And at that moment, he realizes that this huge sword is hanging above his head. And the king did this on purpose, because to really feel what it would be like to be the king, there is continuously this fear and this danger of invading forces, for example, or that people are still well fed, and there are all these things that trouble the king. And this is what the sword represents, the imminent danger that is constantly looming above his head. And I think that is a really beautiful way to depict this. And yeah, well, that's for that part. So let's continue to the next. Yeah, so like I said, he is the connection between the realm of the divinity and the realm of the mortal world. So he can be seen as the vehicle that brings order and regenerativity to the world. So I don't know if I pronounced that correctly, so correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, that's that. So the function of the king in its fullness has two major functions, and that is ordering and setting the direction for where he wants his kingdom to go. He's the one that makes the decisions, but he's also the one that watches the boundaries and protects everything within his realm. And the second major function is the providing of fertility and blessing within his realm. You can see the providing of blessing as you can see in a lot of movies where the citizens of this kingdom come up to the king's chamber and one by one can ask the king for their request, and he listens to them attentively. He considers what to do with this request, and then he answers them, gives them something to help them or anything in that direction. And that is the important part, that he takes everyone seriously that's living within his world, because he has to take care of them, and if he's disconnected from them, he cannot serve them in the right way. So then onto the shadow sides, and the shadow sides are also really well represented in movies. And you have, for each archetype, you have the passive pole and you have the active pole, and you can see this as a meter, right? If you're right in the middle, then you're balanced, but if you slip a little bit back to the passive pole, then you are not embodying the king. And you can also shift a little bit to the active pole, where you're too much in the king energy, and through that it becomes destructive. So these two shadow sides for the king are the tyrant, which is not inherently evil, but he takes control by intimidation, for example, and by really controlling the people, right? Where the full king has people following him willingly. The negative or the passive shadow side is the weakling, where you are afraid of taking the actions that you need to be taking and constantly letting yourself be led by fear. So where the king is providing fertility and blessing, the tyrant hates new life. He's disgusted by this and envious, because it represents something that he lost within himself. And yeah, there is this story about King Herodes, and if I'm correct, this is a biblical story with baby Jesus, and the king sets out to go after this baby because this baby represents a threat to his rule, right? And yeah, he actually is disgusted by this new life because it's so innocent still, and also because it's still weak. It reflects to him his own weakness, which he is not able to face. And to be a really good king, you have to be able to objectively look at yourself and accept your own weaknesses, and then start working on them through the warrior to resolve these weaknesses and to turn these things around so that you can more fully embody the king energy. So the weakling and the tyrant are inherently linked, actually, because this weakness within the shadow king is the trigger for the tyrant to come out. He hates this weakness within himself, so he starts acting out towards other people, and that is obviously not good. So yeah, like I said, it's incredibly hard for the tyrant or the shadow king actually to accept his own weaknesses, work at them, and improve those areas of his life. And this is it for the explanation of the king. I will go more into depth in the course I will be creating, but for now this serves its purpose, and then after this I will go into the questions that I got from Ricky Royale, which challenged me to do this challenge.
What up, Dennis? Welcome to day 1 of the Harness Your Masculine Power Challenge. And so the first day is going to be King Day. So you're going to be staying in your king energy the most, even though you're switching through the other archetypes, but to really focus and bring awareness to your inner king. So I'm going to send you 2 videos to check out to kind of put you in the headspace for that, and then I have some questions that are going to help you throughout the day to move forward on your challenge. So question number 1 is, how am I being the king of my reality this week? How am I being the king of my reality this week?
Okay, so to answer this first question, my answers are to paint a perfectly clear picture of my vision of what I'm trying to achieve for myself, but also for others at the same time. And this relates to your why, right? Your why is the same for yourself as well as for others, and they are really interlinked. So my vision for myself is to become the best version of myself. That's also why I'm doing this challenge. And my goal is to travel all around the world to explore and get to know different cultures, different kinds of people, but also different religions, and to visit some of the most ancient sites like the Mayan temples, for example, or the Inca temples, or the pyramids, or Pumapunkur, for example. There are a lot of these really interesting structures around the world, which many people don't know the full story yet. And I believe that it would be incredibly inspiring to visit all these places and to learn about these cultures, how they thought about life and self-development and structuring our society. Because I believe at this moment we are heading downhill, and our society seems to be extremely fractured. And I believe that if we heal ourselves, we can heal the world through that. But for that, the focus has to be on ourselves first, and or even on ourselves only. And this relates a little bit to the magician energy, because the magician also conveys their wisdom to other people as well, and that is part of becoming the best version of yourself, right? Also in service of other people. And the second one is one that I really should work on. This is one of my weaknesses, that oftentimes I do not keep my own word. So I say I will do things and then I don't do them. And I know that many of you have the same problem, because life gets in the way, you forget about it or whatever happens, but you have to stay true to your word as much as possible, because if you don't, you cannot trust your own words anymore. And when you cannot trust your own words, how can you think that other people should trust you, right? So those are the two main things that I am going to do, or how I'm going to be the king in my own life.
Question number 2 is, what are 3 bold decisions this week that will move me forward to building my vision? All right, being the king is being the decision maker. So on this day, it's really more focused on what are the decisions that I'm going to do that are going to move me forward.
So to answer this question, what I am going to do is to go all out on the challenges that I've set for myself. The paperclip challenge, the challenge that I'm doing right now with Ricky Royale on the challenge of the archetypes, but also the 88-day challenge that I'm doing together with Michael Collins. He is a real warrior. I do believe there are still some other archetypes that he can balance out a little better, but that's the same for all of us. But he's created an 88-day program where you have an 8-day schedule, and on the first day you set the entire schedule for what you want to achieve by the end of that week, and then work your way towards that end of the week and all the actions that you have to take that will get you there. Many times though, it will be so that you don't achieve these goals, but because you have set these goals for yourself for an 8-day cycle, you get a lot further ahead than you would have when you didn't set these intentions and these goals. So this is an 88-day challenge with 11 cycles of 8 days, and this fits perfectly together with the challenge of the archetypes, because this is a 4-day cycle. So I will just copy paste the archetype challenge every 4 days within this 8-day period of the 88-day challenge. The second thing is to just take a little bit more risks, and one of my goals has been to travel the world, like I said before, right? And my first destination where I want to go is to Nasik in India, but I've been holding myself back from doing that because my finances are not really stable at this moment, and it's fear that I'm letting myself be led by, and I want to overcome that fear, to look for a way that I can make this possible, because we don't want to ask or we don't want to say to ourselves this isn't possible. We want to say to ourselves, how can I make this possible, or how is this possible? And for that, the next thing that I would be going to do is to start sub-renting my house, because by sub-renting my house for a certain period of time, I can save more money. I will have to find another place to stay temporarily, but this will enable me to have a little bit more freedom in my finances, and to finally buy that flight ticket to India to get my vaccines and to pay for my visa and that kind of thing.
Question number 3 is, how can I be a better leader? How can you be a better leader to your audience, to the tribe that you're building that's going to follow you on your journey of building your brand?
Yeah, to answer this one is to follow through on what I say I will do. This relates to the last question that I got, right? The next thing that I will do to be a better leader is to create a roadmap for others to follow, with actionable steps and practical tools that are easy to implement. And this is what I will start doing next week. On Monday, I will start working out what the program will look like, how I can put the most valuable knowledge that I have acquired over the years into there, so that I can present this to people. It will be a continuing program, so it will be a monthly subscription to this, and there I will give you a structure that will allow you to consistently get better and better and better over time. And Tony Robbins calls this CANI, constant and never-ending improvement. And I am applying this structure already in my life, and I know because of that it will also help all of you.
Question number 4 is, where is my Shadow King cock blocking my growth? All right, where is my Shadow King cock blocking my growth?
So, where is my Shadow King still cock blocking me? So, this is a really interesting one, because like I said before, I've tended to slip back into the weakling, to want to feel safe and secure and comfortable, right? And really not take the necessary actions to get me to where I want to be.
And then question number 5 is, what's my plan, right? The king is the decision maker, and he's also the planner, right? You plan shit out to visualize, take your vision, and there's like the vision and then there's the action, right? In between that is the planning, so you can see things and move things out and make those bold actions when we get to Warrior Day. But before that, you can plan it out. You can see it before it happens and prepare yourself to take those actions. All right? Very simple. Let me know how it goes. I'm excited for you, buddy. Peace.
Or, well, this relates to the essence of the king, because the king sets the direction, right? Like I said before. So to know where you want to go and to create a plan of how you will get there is really, really important in regards to the king energy. And that is to challenge myself in all key areas of my life, in my health, my relationships, but also business-wise, and so that I can become the best version of myself. I will base all these challenges on where I still need to grow. So I have to really dive into my own insecurities and my own weaknesses, and this will also allow me to get out of this weakling, out of the Shadow King, because I will have to face my own inadequacies, and this is something really hard to do, and it is something that that no one actually wants to do, but it is necessary if we want to become the person that we are meant to be. All these things I will also document along the way. I will be putting out content on social media, but also on YouTube about these challenges that I'm doing. I will let all of you guys follow me along on my path to become this person. And yeah, like I said before, this is all with the purpose of developing the skills I need to be successful in this endeavor. So with that said, these were all the questions that I got for the King energy or for the King archetype. And one extra thing that I would like to add is that you can really start envisioning yourself to be this good king, right? To create a perfectly clear picture of what this good king looks like, and to start seeing this within yourself. You can do this through meditation, and this can be really powerful. There are also meditations of getting all the archetypes together, hearing them out on all their personal preferences and things they want to accomplish, and then you as the observer, as the ego, or you have to listen to all of them, what they want. You weigh it against each other, and then based on that you make a decision of how to move forward. And I want to thank all of you for bearing with me during this video. If you liked it, be sure to hit the like button below. Also, I invite you to subscribe to my channels and hit the notification bell so that you get updates when I post a new video. This week is the King, and next week I will do the Magician. So I'm really excited to take you guys along on this journey. I hope you learned something, and if you want to support me on this journey, I also invite you to take a look at my Patreon page, where you can directly support me with some added content and posts that I will only be making over there. And there you can get a look behind the screens of what I'm doing, how I'm doing it, what's to come, and in the future I will also add some merchandise and all these kinds of things. So it's going to be an incredibly exciting journey. I'm glad to have all of you guys along with me on this journey, and I see you next week. Bye bye.